Uh, I'm sorry, but I cannot hear you, Fahim. Somehow you are mute.
Oh, sorry,
Okay,
sorry everybody.
all right.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Fahim Mubin, and I will be your host for today for Eco M Malaysia. And today, I will be joining Dr. Wan Juliana Wan Ahmad. A little bit of background about Dr. Wan Juliana. She has a PhD in plant and soil science from the University of Aberdeen, Scotland, and is specialized in the plant community ecology, focusing on the mangrove swamp forest and the wetland ecosystems, and is active in the nature education programs at a national and international level, and is certified subject specialist under the in Department of Environment Malaysia. So without further ado, here is Dr. Wan Juliana. Oh, and Dr. Wan Juliana is also the Vice President of Eco Explorers Malaysia, also known as Eco M. Welcome, Dr. Wan Juliana.
Okay, thank you, Fahim. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for the introduction as well. Alhamdulillah, I'm able to make it today. Um, so, uh, so how do we start?
Okay, so today, Dr. Wan Juliana, you will be talking about mangroves. So to start, why don't I ask you a series of questions, starting with what are mangroves?
All right, sure. Okay, mangroves. Many people, when we mention the word mangroves, would imagine that it's a tree with the prop roots, right? Uh,
Yeah,
just like the image that I'm showing you now. So these are the common understanding of people when we say what is mangroves.
okay.
But in fact, they are actually sorry, previous. They are not actually the only tree that represent mangroves. The mangroves is actually a whole set of plants
Yeah,
which are living in a tidal area. So in simple word, they are the backbone between the sea and the land.
I see.
That's what I can say simply lah.
Um,
Uh,
all right. And so when did you start to work with mangroves?
okay, going into that question, uh, um, so how do I start? Okay, let me take one step back in time before I work in mangroves. I did my PhD at the terrestrial forest in Paso Forest Reserve, which is in Negeri Sembilan. So it is a
Mm-hmm.
lowland hydrocut forest. So what I did was uh, totally different during my PhD, and after I have finished my PhD, only then I start with zero knowledge on the mangroves. It begins with a scientific expedition in Langkawi Islands. So it was back in 2001, right after I came back from my PhD, uh, where I meet fellow researchers from UMT, University Malaysia Terengganu, and they also joined the expedition to look at the mangrove species diversity at Langkawi. And after that, I since I have zero knowledge, I don't know anything about mangrove plants. So I learned from them actually. And it is a very slow learning curve because it's a new thing for me. So what I'm saying here is that when you or the rest of you are embarking on a new field of studies, so don't be afraid to explore because as for me, I start with zero. Although my PhD is in a different field, but
Okay.
I switched to mangroves after that because of a few factors lah that I will tell a bit later. So these are the group of students that I have been involved in at Langkawi. They are actually students from Mexico, Taiwan, all over
Oh,
the ASEAN countries who came to Langkawi to learn about mangroves.
I see.
And we did meet a lot of our team lah, a lot of people while doing working on mangroves.
Okay. Dr. Wan Juliana, would you like to continue sharing about
Yeah,
mangroves?
sure. And on top of that, uh, as you mentioned in my biodata, I'm also a certified environmental consultant under the DOE, the Department of Environment of Malaysia. So after developing the skill or the knowledge for mangroves, I get this invitation to do environment EIA, environmental impact assessment, where the government ask us consultant to do an assessment whether a certain area can be converted into a development area. And it so happened in 2000, starting 2010 until 2015, 16, 17, there are a lot of developments being proposed to in mangrove areas. So that's where I learn more
Yes.
about how to mitigate the mangroves, let's say in Johor, in Kedah, and all over the country, like basically. So that experience, working as a consultant for the government, really brush up my skill lah, in how do we balance between development and sustain and conservation of the mangroves. That's all lah.
Okay. Another question is, where can we find mangoes?
Yeah, good question. Where can we find mangroves? So let me begin with the global scale lah. Uh, uh, or maybe I start with what are mangroves first.
Okay.
Yeah, what are mangroves first? Because um, some people, as I mentioned earlier in the first slide, some people assume mangroves are only the tree with the prop roots, right? But in fact,
Yes.
there are also other plants, not just a tree with the prop roots, but there are also herbs, shrubs, ferns, or even climbers. Uh, all of them are considered as a part of mangroves as long as they are the plants who or whom can tolerate living in saline area. So that's why the term halophytes comes, where referring to these plants are able to prosper in salinity or a saline
Mm,
area. Yeah,
yes.
those are mangroves. So where can we find mangroves at global scale? uh, mangroves are very restricted in terms of distribution. They can only be found between 20-degree north from our uh, um, latitude, okay, from the equator, and
Mm.
uh, and 20-degree south. That's the most mangrove coverage that we can find in our at our global level. And the mangroves are divided into two hemisphere: the eastern hemisphere, which is at the Southeast Asia and also Middle East, and also the
Yes.
Western Hemisphere, which covered from Africa up to the America, and especially the Central America and the South America. So,
So a lot of the mangroves, most of them are found around the Southeast Asian regions. Why is that?
yes, because of the tropical and subtropical climate,
I
mangroves
see.
can only survive in tropical and subtropical climate. They cannot survive beyond that. Okay,
Oh,
they need the humid and uh, high rainfall for their
I see.
survival. Mm. All right. So if we were to look at Malaysia, it's very small here, Malaysia. We can find mangrove in basically three types of habitat. A riverine area, yeah, along rivers, or coastal area. That is another type,
Mm.
uh, which we call as coastal mangrove, and delta mangroves. But we don't really have in Malaysia delta mangroves. Yeah, delta mangroves is more concentrated at Bangladesh area, India,
I see.
Indonesia, and Thailand.
Mm.
All right. I I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and next, I have another question. Which country has the largest mangrove forest in the world?
Right. May you have you may have a guess. Take a guess. I mean, from this
Um,
map, which
it
country would you?
look it looks like one of the Southeast Asian countries. I
Yeah,
think
you're right.
mm, it's either Indonesia or Australia.
Uh, uh, that in a sense is correct if you said that the mangrove area representing the largest out of their total land area. Yeah, but the largest mangrove forest in the world is actually Sundarbans mangroves at Bangladesh, at
Oh,
the Bengal Bay. And
I
Bengal
see.
Bay is actually uh, the mangroves in the Bengal Bay is actually a UNESCO heritage site. Yeah, so it even has Bengal tigers living in the mangroves. So that's how
Wow.
big, how large the mangroves are. Okay, so the even the Bengal tiger roam free in these mangroves areas at Sundarbans. So it's very amazing for us. I've never been here. I wish I could someday. Um, the furthest mangrove area that I go other than Malaysia is in the Thailand, Satun, which
I
I took
see.
a boat across Langkawi to Satun of Thailand, and another another country that I went to, I think Vietnam, but I haven't seen it. I didn't go to the mangroves area. So
I see.
yeah, I wish I could visit other mangrove areas in other countries as well.
Okay. Yep. So then, which country will have the highest mangrove cover then?
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, it's in Indonesia. Yeah, and second followed by Australia, and the third is Malaysia.
Oh,
So out of the total land area, Malaysia is the third. Has the highest mangrove cover.
even though Malaysia is quite a
Very
small
small,
country.
yeah. But the mangrove cover of Malaysia, including Sabah and Sarawak, of course. So
Mm,
Sabah has the most in Malaysia,
yes,
followed by Kuching. Sorry, Kuching. Yeah, Kuching area in Sarawak and Peninsular Malaysia. And in Malaysia, the largest mangrove area or the most famous mangrove area is in Perak, Matang Forest,
I see.
in Perak, followed by Merbok Kedah, uh, and Langkawi, and also in Johor lah. Uh, so that's about it.
Okay.
But
Um,
sadly, may I add,
yes,
it seems we have the largest mangrove area in Malaysia, right? But um, the total coverage of mangrove of our total land area is only less than 10%. And it is
I
very
see.
discouraging when you see a lot of development being proposed to be developed in mangrove areas, but the government
Mm,
is doing their best to avoid any destructive development in our mangrove forest lah, which is very encouraging. And there are a lot of activities as well being proposed, or initiative that has been going on to do mangrove replanting all over our country. So that's how we maintain our forest, to balance between the development and also the conservation. So it's
okay.
more, we have to work more on the mangrove restoration as well by planting the mangrove plants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, all right. And moving on, the next question is when did mangoes first appear?
Oh, that's a tricky one. um, well, from the fossil records, the first mangrove, they have the record based on fossils
Yes.
is in this image, is the Nipa plant. Have you seen a Nipa plant, Fahim?
No, not
No.
yet.
In real life, uh, not yet.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Uh, Nipa plant is actually one of the mangrove oldest plant.
I
Uh,
see.
yeah, and the fossil records way back to the geological time. I can't remember which era, but this is among the oldest tree lah in mangrove area. So it's about 1,000, a few thousand years ago, recorded. Other than that, other than that fossil records, there are also some studies done looking at the age of the mangroves. But
I see.
the 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 researchers doing that is very scanty lah, not much. So I cannot say
Mm,
much on this to answer this. Yeah.
okay. Okay. And next, so what is so special about mangoes? Why are mangoes special?
Ah, now this is something interesting. If you've been to a mangrove forest during any time of the year, you can see the fruits. So this is the beauty of the mangrove forest, where the fruiting is said to be all year round, but actually they have
Mm.
seasons as well, but not very distinct season. But when you go to a mangrove forest, you will bound to find at least one, two, or three in fruiting, yeah, or in fruit. Um, so if you look at this photo, yeah, that I'm showing now,
Mm,
the
yeah.
fruit looks like a very longish, uh, what do you say, um, propagule in the word, the term used in science, in the scientific or biology book.
Yeah.
So this propagule looks like a fruit, right? But it is
Yes.
actually a fruit that has germinated while still attached to the mother.
Oh,
Yeah. So the fruit is actually the small brownish part here, and the long
yeah.
part, the rest of that is actually the uh, seedling already, which
Oh,
sprouted.
okay.
And once this fruit fall off from the mother tree, the bottom part of this propagule will start producing roots, and the top part will start producing young leaves. So
Okay.
basically, when it falls into the ground during low tide, or it falls into the water or the sea during high tide, this fruit will quickly uh, start producing its roots, and also
So
the young
it will
leaves.
grow a
Yeah.
new mangrove tree.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh,
But not all species, because we have a lot of species in mangrove forest, right?
yes.
So not all species has the same strategy in reproduction. So this strategy that I've just told you is called viviparous fruit or viviparity, meaning it produce into a seedling while still attached to mother tree. But if you look at the next photo here on the left, the seeds are actually still in the fruit. So the which looks like a mangrove. We call it as a mangrove apple. It looks like an
I
apple.
see.
The seeds are very small seeds inside the rounded fruit here. And other things that are interesting about mangroves are there are a lot of shapes of fruits you can find. So the top one here is look a cigar like fruit we call it. Also a viviparous fruit. Once it falls to the ground, it will quickly develop the roots and the shoots, okay, young leaves. So this is the same
Yeah.
as the next one is the same as the mangrove apple, but different species. This is a very the long brownish is a pod, so it's like a legume. So it will produce
Oh,
the
okay.
seeds like a legume, other legumes. By when the fruit is dehiscing, so it will release the seeds. And the far right here on the top is a hybrid. So that's another special feature of mangrove. You can easily find a lot of hybrids in mangrove forest because they are very restricted, okay, in terms of distribution. So in terms of uh, pollination, they have really small population to make sure the reproductive system working. So they tend to uh, develop this hybrid species in order to survive. Okay.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than the fruit, okay, this is only talking about the fruit. Another feature that is interesting about the mangroves are the roots. So if you see, there are different kinds of roots for different species in mangrove forest. So the most common one are the prop roots in the far left here. And then the second photo here in the middle is the knee roots. which looks like your knee when you bend
Yeah.
your knee. Yeah.
Yes.
And the third one here on the top is a huge cone like area roots. So all these are area roots, but they have different shapes. And why they are like so? Because they becomes the breathing roots when the tide are high. Okay, so the plants need to breathe, right? So the gas exchange
Yes.
happen at this area roots to help the plant to grow. And the third one, okay, the final one here on the bottom right is a snake-like roots. So there you go. There are a lot of terms for the root system alone. So why are these mangroves special? Because they have these adaptations to survive in this extreme environment. So what is the extreme environment? First, they live in the always inundated area at least 2 times a day. The roots will be inundated, and then they lives in a very high saline water at the sea areas. So just
Yeah.
imagine yourself if you drink saline water, what will happen to you?
Uh, yeah. If you drink saline water, you won't actually like it a lot because it's very salty.
Yeah, salty water.
Yeah.
Or when you're swimming at the sea, uh, you accidentally swallow
Yeah.
the seawater, so you will become very thirsty. Yeah,
Yes.
of the osmosis process and so on. So these mangrove plants, although they live in saline water, they actually exclude the salt from their system by removing the salt through their leaves or through the pores, uh, or the filtering system, just like your filter water system. They
Yes.
remove salt from their system. So they actually didn't really need to live in a saline area, but they are able to adapt to saline area. So that's
So
what makes them special.
does it mean that some mangroves can grow in the fresh water or only the saline areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, actually they can grow in fresh water as well, which goes to the next slide here.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, they can grow in fresh water. So this is an example of recent findings by a researcher in hold on uh, a researcher in Amazon Delta. They find a mangrove forest which actually survive very well in freshwater part of their Amazon Delta. And we do have in Malaysia as well. In Merbok Kedah, as I mentioned earlier, okay,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
a part of the Merbok mangrove complex where the plants lives in uh, freshwater areas. And uh, this is something that add up to the diversity of the plants, uh, because you can find a lot many different species that fit into different habitat. So they can grow in freshwater or brackish water. That's the most common one for mangroves, and also at the most saline area at the sea facing habitat. So this photo here I'm showing you on the left here is a perepat tree. In Malay we call it perepat daun lebar. And this tree can only be found in Kedah, in Merbok, and also in Langkawi only.
Yeah.
Okay. And in Langkawi, so happen we only have one tree left. So
Mhm.
it's a very critically endangered species. And it survive in freshwater part of the mangrove ecosystem. And we try to propagate this tree uh, using using just uh, our tap water to water them every day, and they survived in an effort for conservation lah, exit to conservation.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And next, how do mangroves benefit humans?
This is the best part. Always, we would like to know how does this forest uh, or anything around us benefit us, right?
Yes.
Similar goes to the mangroves. Um, well, the mangroves sadly has been treated as a wasteland, if we like it or not. Uh, Many people didn't really can relate, except for people living close to the sea or living close to the mangrove forest. But mind you, if you're living in the cities, you still eat seafood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you enjoy prawns, Fahim?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If you look at this photo, uh, the sauce of the seafood, not all, but almost the seafood that we like, the young fries of prawns, for example, they live in the mangrove area before
I see.
they migrate to the sea, open sea. So the small fry need the mangrove as their nursery. Yeah. So
Yes.
if you look at far left photo, this is my Sifu, uh, Prof Maimon holding two prawns, and these two prawns alone is as big as her arm.
Wow.
So it's huge. It's huge. So it's not common to find this size. Yeah. So this is how our food comes. They need the mangrove as part of their life cycle to survive. And other than that, you have any other types of clams or seashells, okay, at the mangrove areas where the local people who living close to the mangrove make it as their daily delicacy. And you have the mangrove crabs as well. This is the photo here is the nipah crab. Yeah, basically you
Yes.
can find it in nipah area. Uh, and on the far right here on the bottom is uh what is it called? Uh, somehow I just forgot its name. Uh, it looks like a
Looks like a
lipad.
shrimp. Oh.
It looks like a crayfish, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Uh, yeah, so it is also found in mangrove areas. So there are a lot of sources of food for us that actually need a part of their life cycle in the mangrove forest. So these are among the direct benefit to humans lah. Other than that, the most uh, current issue, people said mangrove forest is one of the highest carbon store uh, comparing to other types of forest. So the mangrove actually store carbon more, up to 4 to 6 times more than our inland forest.
I see.
Uh, so in terms of mitigating the climate change issue, mangrove forest is said to be the most highly effective forest to store the carbon and reduce any negative impact for the climate change. So that is something that we cannot see, yeah, every day, but it is working on its own. If we don't study, then we don't really realize that fact,
Yes.
yeah. And other than that, mangrove is also said as a wave breaker. So it prevents from erosion. It protects
Yeah.
the nearby area next to the sea from flood and so on. And one of the issue that brought us to attention is the pollution, right? Where
Yes.
one of the mangrove area in Johor said to have the pollution of heavy metals, isn't it? I can't remember.
I
So
see.
it it was found in the mangrove areas. So if we have a good mangrove forest, they would act as the buffer
Yeah.
before the pollution goes to the sea. So that's among the things that how mangrove benefit human.
Okay. Um, um, so next question is why did you fall in love with mangoes, as you say in your title?
In the title, yeah. Um, um, I'm going to be a bit philosophical here.
Yep.
When we do our work, yeah, we always would like to find the best area that we are able to deliver, uh, and it touched their hearts, right? So
Yes.
I found it with mangroves. It's easier for me to share the enthusiasm, yeah,
Yep.
with other people, especially the students. So it comes very naturally when I talk about mangroves to share the passion or the beauty of the mangrove with them. So that's how I fell in love with mangroves. It becomes easy. Although I begin with zero knowledge, it, it allows me to find a way to deliver and share my knowledge to them uh, on the importance of the mangroves. How does it works in terms of biology,
Yes.
uh, and so on. So I also met a lot of people with the same eccentric mangrove people.
Yep.
So yeah, that's why I keep going on back to this uh, mangrove forest. Well, basically because I think I find my my correct or my true passion here lah. Basically,
I see.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Wan Juliana, is there anything else you'd like to share about mangoes? Any other
Uh,
slide?
yeah, I've been working in mangrove since 2001, since the first expedition in Langkawi, and I haven't stopped until now. Although I've I've opt for early retirement, but I keep going back to this mangrove forest, and I hope although there are a lot of threats from now and then to the mangrove areas where the latest one, for example, at Kuala Selangor Nature Park, they are planning to convert the area into a very high end mangrove ecotourism area with hotels and so on. So yeah, for me, development we cannot say straight away no to development, but with a very careful planning and all,
Yes.
we can make sure that we find a balance between conservation and development.
Yep.
That's all from me. Mm-mm.
Okay. If that's all, then we can turn to the questions in the YouTube chat. So
Yeah,
we
sure.
have quite a lot of questions. The
Mm-hmm.
first being why should we in Malaysia particularly pay attention to mangroves? And this is from Fahan Rais.
Farhan, why should we in Malaysia particularly pay attention to mangroves? Hmm. Um. Okay. What can I say from an experience as a consultant to the Department of Environment of Malaysia? We can see a lot of proposed development is to reclaim the coastal area.
Yes.
Okay, so when you
True.
do reclamation or propose a reclaim projects, a lot of this development would involve uh, the loss of the mangrove patch, because mangroves needs tidal, or in terms of hydrology, it needs to be inundated at least 2 times uh, a day. So when you reclaim the area next to the coastal area, the mangrove cannot receive enough water for them to
Yes.
survive. They'll be they will start dying because not enough water. So the main concern is this reclaimed area is not small. Basically, usually the reclaimed area proposed will cover more than 50 hectares. So 5,000 hectares. So it's large
Mm.
area usually. So a mangrove forest, as we say, is also the biggest um, uh, carbon storage area.
Yes.
So that's the only area that we have in Malaysia, very small also, just 5% out of the total land area in Peninsular Malaysia, for example. So if we destroy it, then we'll be releasing a lot of carbon as well to the environment. So that's another concern. And um, and our food, as I told you earlier, seafood, they spend
Yes.
some time of their life cycle in the mangrove ecosystem. So we need them to make sure these fish, prawns, crabs, uh, enough supply for us. So it also a part of our food security as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. How do mangroves affect the ecosystem?
How the mangroves? You mean the trees, Sarah?
Yeah, the mangrove trees, I believe.
Yeah. So the mangrove trees, how do they affect the ecosystem? Tricky one, Sarah. Because when you talk about the tree alone, uh, the tree lives in the mangrove area because they are able to adapt to the extreme environment of the mangroves or the habitat. Okay, so let's say the mangrove is the habitat, the house. So the occupants of the habitat is the mangrove trees. So this mangrove is important in a way because these are the plants that able to tolerate this extreme environment.
Yes.
Okay, you cannot find any terrestrial plant living in the mangrove habitat. Only mangrove trees can live in the mangrove habitat.
Yes.
These plants are the only plants that are able to tolerate the salinity and the strong winds as well. So we need them in order to make our coastal area especially safe for people who living next to the coastal area and so on.
Yes. Uh,
If you look at the tsunami that happens in 2004, there are a lot of research done after that, that saying that they found out that at least the width of the mangrove forest from the coastal area up to the inland area need to be in 100 meters wide in order to make sure that this tsunami won't affect the people living in coastal area. So that's how important the mangroves are. So you need at least 100 meters wide. It's not
wow.
easy to find 100 meters wide of mangrove forest nowadays, especially in Peninsular Malaysia. Okay.
Alright.
I hope that
Moving
answers.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, we have another question from Soraya, and she is asking, what can we as children do about uh, ensuring mangroves remain important to our lives? So,
Yeah.
what can children do to make sure that the mangroves will remain important to their life?
All right. Thank you, Soraya. Always with the uh, what do you call hot question, hot spot question. Um, well, as children, um, I know that children nowadays don't really like going to the mud area, right? Well, you can start by sharing with your friends the diversity of the mangrove forest, the different kinds of fruits, the different kinds of roots. It's very rare for you to go to a terrestrial forest and
Yeah,
find different types of fruit at one day or in one trekking session. Okay, in fruits, in fruiting or in flowering. But if you go to the mangrove forest, it's very easy for you to find all these plants in fruiting or in flowering phase, because they are said to be uh, year-round flowering plants. And other than that, uh, think again about our how important the food security to us. Yeah, because for example, the durian, if you enjoy the durian, which being pollinated by the bats, uh, these bats, okay, during fruiting season in of these durian trees,
yeah,
they will gather around this fruit orchard, okay, durian orchard, to get the nectar as their source of food for the bats. But during non-seasonal of these terrestrial plants, they need to go somewhere else to find their source of food. So another area that these bats goes to is the mangrove forest. So this mangrove forest becomes their transition place before the next fruiting season in the terrestrial forest. So there is actually a connection between the land area and the coastal area. So in this critical issue of food security, where you find the price of even your basic chicken getting higher in price, uh, that's how important it is for us to keep maintaining our natural ecosystem, not just mangrove forest lah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And next question: should mangroves only be planted along the sea and coast or the riverbed, or can the mangroves be planted in inland, and will they play a role in the ecosystem?
um yeah, that's another question when people start having the awareness of mangrove planting. Yeah, and the first one of the first replant mangrove replanting work has been done by our Forest Research Institute of Malaysia, FRIM Kepong, and
Yeah,
they did it in Selangor, which is one of it is Sungai Haji Dorani in Selangor. And from their work there, they found out that not all species can be planted at this coastal area because of the high waves. These mangrove seedlings will be easily washed away by the waves.
yeah,
So we need to be careful when you choose the type of species to plant. And the mangroves actually has three different zones. The closest to the sea, we call it as a sea facing mangrove areas. That's the closest to the sea. And the middle zone is a mesozone, which another different species can survive. And also the third zone is the landward zone. So if you plant a species from the sea facing area in the landward zone, this species will have to compete with the most dominant plants in the land zone, so they won't survive because of the competition, right? So it's
Okay.
the knowledge on the correct species is important.
And hopefully we have time for two more questions. So the first is, as Malaysia has one of the highest mangrove trees population, uh, we must have a role in sustaining and managing our environment through our mangroves. So how can this be done?
Yeah. um in Malaysia, our mangrove forests basically are now no longer uh, uh, being subscribed as a production forest. So if you go to our forest management system under the forestry department, some of the forests are being set aside as production forests, especially our dendrocarp forest lah. But for mangrove forests, way back they are being harvested for their charcoal, right?
Yeah.
If you use your charcoal for barbecuing, then some of the charcoal actually comes from the mangrove tree trunk. So um, we no longer allow the forest to be harvested for charcoal except for certain area in mangrove in Matang mangrove forest. Okay, so a lot of this management has been improved lah in Malaysia, so that we
Yeah.
keep our mangrove forest area intact in a way lah. Uh, so it's very encouraging as well from researchers who did remote sensing. They keep track. They keep track how many forests mangrove cover. Uh, uh, how does it changes from year back 1990 up to now. So it's very encouraging to see that we are actually maintaining the amount of mangrove forest that we have since year 2010, I think, through mangrove replanting. So that's among the efforts being done by the uh, government and also the forest institutes, forestry and the forest institutes.
All right. Another question. Are there any other animals apart from the ones that you have mentioned that are living or they living in or nearby the mangroves area?
Good question. So let's
Uh,
focus in Malaysia lah. In Malaysia, you can easily find the monkeys in mangrove
okay.
areas. If you go to mangrove areas, especially in Kuala Selangor, the monkey will start chasing you if you bring pink bags, okay, plastic bags. They start uh, chasing you to get the food. Those are the common ones in mangrove areas. Other than that, you can find mammals, other mammals. For example, the slow loris, yeah,
I see.
or in simple word we say kongkang in Malay, and other than that, birds. Yeah, there are very high
Yes.
diversity of birds that actually becomes the resident of mangrove forest only. They only live in mangrove forest, not in other type of forest. So for bird lovers, if they have a checklist of the birds they want to see in the mangrove area, they would of course go and to get this a photograph of these birds in the mangrove areas. Other than that, in Malaysia we don't have tigers in the mangrove.
Yeah.
We seldom see in our inland forest anyway, the tigers. Yeah, that's about it lah in our forest. The largest would be the slow loris lah so far in the mangroves.
Mm. All
Other
right.
than that, you can find crocodiles, of course, in mangrove
Well,
areas. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And I think that's the last of the questions. And
Yeah.
lastly, before we end, I heard that Eco Explorers is having a trip coming up soon to
Mhm.
Mersing, and it's in Pulau Mawa, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Will there be mangroves around there? And can you tell us a bit more about this trip?
Yeah, yeah. We are organizing this trip in September during the school holidays. So I welcome all of you to join us. This trip this time is being co-organized with the ECOMA, which is the Mangrove Ecosystem Research Centre under UKM, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
So we offer a 3 days and 2 nights program where you will be uh, uh, brought to mangrove areas as well,
Yeah.
in the Mersing area. We have island hopping, snorkeling activities, and if we are lucky enough, we will be able to uh, observe the migratory birds or waders. Yeah, and yeah, so please do join us. It will be in September during the school holidays, 8th to 10th of September.
Mhm. Sounds
Yeah.
like fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if that's all, then I would like to thank you, Dr. Wan Juliana Wan Ahmad, for sharing your knowledge about mangroves with us. And I would like to thank the audience for being with us today. And I, I'm sure a lot of people will be very excited about the next trip to Mersing. And if that will be all for today. And my name is Fahim Mubin again, signing off for Eco Explorers. And wabila taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And have a good rest of the day. Thank you, Dr.
All right.
Mubin.
Thank
Bye,
you very
everybody.
much. Bye.